I'm a risk taker, and it's hell. Here's why. Everyone loves a risk taker, right? The founder who goes all in, the adventurer pushing the limits, the artist who just bears their soul. We're supposed to be the heroes of the story, the ones who make life exciting. But what if I told you that for me, it's not a story of heroism, it's a story of being trapped in a living hell. I'm a risk taker, and I feel like I'm drowning in a sea of crippling anxiety and a dopamine cycle that is silently destroying my life from the inside out. This isn't about bragging or looking for pity. This is a confession, and it's a warning, because the same drive that society celebrates is the very thing that has me feeling completely and utterly out of control. Section 1. The glamorous lie. Think about how we talk about risk. The greater the risk, the greater the reward. We tell stories of triumph, of people who bet everything and won. We see the entrepreneur on the cover of a magazine, the extreme athlete with 1 million followers, the day trader who made a fortune overnight. Their lives look like a highlight reel of pure confidence and courage. And for the longest time, I totally bought into it. I built my entire identity on it. I was the guy who would always say yes to the wild idea. Start a business with no safety net? Of course. Move to a new country on a whim? Done. Make a high-stakes investment that everyone else called crazy? That was my specialty. And when those risks paid off, the feeling was unbelievable. It wasn't just about the money or the success. It was about the rush, a powerful, intoxicating surge of validation and excitement. Society eats this up. Friends called me brave. Mentors called me ambitious. I felt like I was living the life everyone else was too scared to even try. Taking risks was my brand, my identity, my proof that I was alive. But the truth is, the bigger the win, the more I was just feeding a monster I didn't even know existed. I was celebrated for my courage, but no one saw what it was costing me when the cameras were off and the applause died down. They didn't see the real price of that rush. Section 2. The hidden hell. The high from a successful risk is potent, but man, it is temporary. And what comes after is this quiet, creeping emptiness, a deep sense of dread. It's the silence after the storm. I'd find myself feeling dead or numb inside when I wasn't chasing the next big thing. Normal life, the simple stuff that's supposed to bring you joy, just felt bland and colorless. That's when the anxiety would kick in. And I'm not talking about a little worry. I mean a deep, gnawing anxiety that something was terribly wrong, a feeling that I was falling behind, that I was failing, that I needed to do something, anything, to feel that rush again. This created a desperate, vicious cycle. The anxiety would build until it was unbearable, and the only way I knew how to shut it up was to find another risk. It became a compulsion. And this isn't just about extreme sports. It can be anything. Reckless financial decisions, picking fights in relationships just to feel something, making impulsive career changes. The risk itself almost didn't matter, as long as it was big enough to promise that surge of adrenaline and dopamine my brain was screaming for. Over time, I needed bigger and bigger risks to get the same hit. What used to be exciting was now just normal. The baseline for what it took to make me feel alive just kept getting higher and higher. This escalation is a classic sign of a behavioral addiction. Whether it's substances or things like gambling, the pattern is the same. I was addicted to the risk itself. I felt trapped by my own brain, a prisoner to this relentless need for the next hit. The very thing that made me feel so powerful was actually the thing controlling me. Section 3. The why. The dopamine anxiety cycle. So what's actually happening in your brain here? This isn't a character flaw or a lack of willpower, it's just neurochemistry. When you take a risk and win, your brain releases a flood of dopamine. Now, dopamine is often called the pleasure molecule, but it's more like the motivation molecule. It's what tells your brain, hey, that was good. Let's do that again. It's the chemical that drives you to seek rewards. The problem is, your brain loves balance. It's called homeostasis. When it gets these huge unnatural spikes of dopamine, it tries to compensate by basically turning down the volume on your dopamine receptors. Think of it like shouting at someone wearing noise-canceling headphones. At first, you talk normally. To get their attention, you have to shout. Then shout louder. In the same way, your brain becomes less sensitive. This means you need a bigger risk, a bigger shout to get the same feeling. This is where the anxiety comes from. When you're not getting that huge dopamine hit, your baseline level of dopamine is now lower than it used to be. Things that used to bring you simple joy, a walk, talking with a friend, a good meal, they just don't register anymore. You feel flat, unmotivated, and anxious. This state is so uncomfortable that your brain screams for a solution. And the quickest fix it knows is another big risk. You get trapped in a loop. The risk-taking leads to a dopamine crash. The crash causes intense anxiety, and that anxiety drives you to take another, often bigger, risk for relief. You're not even chasing the high anymore, you're just running from the low. You are no longer in control, your brain's reward pathway is. If any of this is sounding familiar, if you've ever felt trapped in a cycle like this, whether it's with risk-taking, social media, or anything else, let me know in the comments. It really helps to know you're not the only one. And if you're getting something out of this, think about subscribing. We're going to get into how to actually break this cycle. Section 4, the turning point. For me, the turning point wasn't some big dramatic explosion. It was more like a slow, painful rot. It was the moment I realized I couldn't remember the last time I felt genuinely content without a crisis to solve or a fire to put out. My relationships were strained because I was never present, always chasing the next thing. My finances were a total roller coaster of huge wins followed by even bigger, dumber losses. The real rock bottom came after a particularly risky business venture went bust. It wasn't just the money that hurt, it was the crushing realization that I had made the decision not from a place of strategy or logic, but from pure desperation. I needed the hit. I needed that jolt of being all in. I had ignored every single red flag and listened only to that frantic voice in my head screaming for its fix. Sitting there in the wreckage, I felt nothing. Not sadness, not anger, just a deep, terrifying numbness. The monster had been fed, it hadn't worked, and now there was just silence. And in that silence, I finally saw the pattern for what it was: an addiction. I wasn't a hero or a maverick. I was an addict, and my drug of choice was chaos. My high life was actually making my life miserable. It wasn't freedom, it was a cage. Section 5, the path out, a new strategy. Breaking free from this cycle isn't about suddenly becoming scared of risks. For a lot of us, that's just not how we're wired. Trying to kill that part of yourself just makes it worse. The way out is about awareness, management, and completely redefining what success and fulfillment actually mean. First, the most critical step was admitting I had a problem and getting professional help to figure out what was driving it. Just like any other behavioral addiction, sometimes you need a guide. Next, I had to consciously learn to find joy and stability. This sounds so simple, but it's incredibly hard when your brain is wired for chaos. It meant creating routines. It meant practicing mindfulness and meditation to learn how to just sit with uncomfortable feelings like boredom and anxiety instead of immediately running from them. It meant deliberately doing low dopamine things, reading a book, going for a long walk without my phone, cooking a meal from scratch. At first it was agonizing, but slowly my brain started to recalibrate. The shouting inside my head got a little quieter. I also had to find healthier outlets for that risk-taking part of me. Instead of betting the farm on a business idea, I could take a calculated risk on a small project. Instead of seeking social drama, I could take the emotional risk of having a deep, vulnerable conversation. It's about channeling that energy into things that build my life up, not things that could tear it all down. And finally, it's about the boring stuff. Getting enough sleep, eating well, exercising. These sound like cliches, but they are absolutely fundamental for regulating your brain chemistry and building up your defenses against that dopamine anxiety pull. Conclusion: my journey is nowhere near over. There are still days I feel that old pull, that familiar itch for a bit of chaos, but the difference is, now I see it. I can name it. I can understand it's just my brain looking for a cheap shortcut to feeling good, and I can consciously choose a different path. I'm learning that real strength isn't in the guts to risk everything, but in the discipline to build something that lasts. True freedom isn't being without limits, it's having the power to choose your own. The world will probably always celebrate the risk takers who hit the jackpot. But we need to have a much more honest conversation about the hidden costs. We need to talk about the anxiety, the addiction, and the feeling of being trapped. So, I want to end by asking you a question. What is the biggest risk you've ever taken, and what did it really cost you? Share your story in the comments. Let's create a space where we can talk about this honestly without the pressure of having to be a hero. Thanks for watching.